Hello there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm back with another Shadow Talk. This is episode 168, and today we'll be talking about the various Schwalb Entertainment games and kind of doing a comparison of them, differentiating them, and figuring out, which game you should play or which game is best for you. So let's take a look at that here in a bit. Before we do so, we want to take a look at, we being me, want to take a look at the current releases for the Schwalb Entertainment verse. And so what we have here is Godless, a starting adventure for the Demon Lord engine. The adventure is called This Land of Ours. So let's take a quick look at the summary here. The last person who remembered life before the apocalypse is long dead, and the survivors of Iron Gate are more concerned with keeping pests off their crops than the before times. But when something starts hunting and killing their neighbors, their focus shifts to staying alive. This campaign will throw your party into a thrilling adventure filled with mysteries, dangers, and difficult decisions. Can you stop the monster and save your community from a new wave of terror? This Land of Ours launches a new campaign that makes use of the setting ideas and rules found in the Godless supplement. To embark on this quest, you will need a copy of the Demon Lord Engine Rules Compendium and the Godless supplement. So the Godless supplement's already been released. I mentioned it a couple of videos ago. And so this is the first adventure, and it has everything you need to build starting adventure, starting tier characters. Plus, it has the adventure built into this supplement. So, Godless has been rebooted for the Demon Lord engine, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more when we get to the main topic. All right, so that is one of the new releases, and then the latest release is The Fate of the Forgotten. It is a Shadow of the Red Moon starting adventure, a new front in the war against the Demon Lord. So The Fate of the Forgotten is the first adventure in the new Shadow of the Red Moon campaign, exploring Tartarus, the Red Moon. Trapped in a prison mined by the malevolent sorcerer Soul Eater, the characters are forced to evacuate Oraculum, whatever, for their captor. When an opportunity to excavate Oraculum for their captor, when an opportunity to escape arises, the characters must navigate a perilous path filled with monstrous terrors. To find freedom, they need to outwit these chthonic horrors before they can nest within them and finally seize control of their destiny. Nest within them, yeah, that sounds very alien-like. So, Shadow of the Red Moon. All right, so again, we'll be touching on this a little bit more later when we talk about the Demon Lord engine. But that is a new starting tier adventure, and it has everything you need to create starting tier characters and to run through the adventure. But as I mentioned, you do need the Demon Lord engine rules in order to run these games. All right, so those are two releases that have been out in the last couple of weeks. And then we now have a Weird Wizard bundle of holding. Now, I'm not sure how long this is going to last, and I'm not sure how long it has been going on. So I'm recording this on September 27th, 2025. It could be over fairly soon. So I would say if you're interested in picking up the Shadow of the Weird Wizard and you missed the Kickstarter, this is your chance to jump in and get it at a very good price point. You have the $10 player bundle, which includes the Weird Wizard core book, and the spell card bundle, which contains 33 sets of cards, one for each of the 18 schools of magic, which racks up to a grand total of nearly 600 spells. And then you have the $26 Sage bundle, which this gets you everything in the player bundle as well as Secrets of the Weird Wizard, as well as a Sage Screen, and 3 source books, including Glory to the High One, Weird Ancestries, and With a Fairy in Hand. So it looks like it's missing the dwarf supplement that recently came out. That's not all, though. You also get 4 adventures. An ambulatory head striding across the lands, Drink deep from the river of my hate, Not today, death, and with gnashed teeth and howling. So the Sage Bundle is the best deal here. For 26 bucks, you get all this stuff. But if you're a player, of course, 10 bucks to get the core rulebook and all the spell cards is pretty darn good. Now, of course, these are all electronics. These are not the physical copies of these things. But still, it is a pretty good deal. And the link for the bundle is right here on the Schwalb Entertainment page. So this is good stuff. Again, I encourage you to go pick up this bundle of holding while it lasts. Okay, so what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about, as our main topic, the various Schwalb Entertainment games. So if you look at the Schwalb Entertainment website, you would think there's a ton of games here, but there's really, these are not all games. Some of them are supplements to Shadow of the Demon Lord. So I would say Shadow of the Demon Lord is the main game for Schwalb Entertainment. It was the first one developed, and it has the most supplements available for it. And supplements are well over 100. There are just so many supplements that have been released for Shadow of the Demon Lord. And that's because it's been out for 10 years, so you know it's had time to build that library. And so when you see Shadow of the Demon Lord here on the Schwalb Entertainment website, everything that says SDL in front of it is a supplement for Shadow of the Demon Lord. So you got SDL source books, SDL adventures, SDL poison pages, SDL monstrous pages, SDL land in shadow, victims of the Demon Lord, and legacy of shadow. You also have the Black Star supplements, which also go along with Shadow of the Demon Lord. They're kind of a little bit separate because they didn't start off under Schwalb Entertainment. They started off under a different company overseas in Italy, I want to say. But they have since come under the Schwalb Entertainment umbrella, and Schwalb has been releasing things for the Black Star line. But again, that goes along with the Shadow of the Demon Lord. All right, so Shadow of the Demon Lord has the most stuff. Now, you also have Shadow of the Weird Wizard. Shadow of the Weird Wizard has stuff, but those aren't broken out here in the Schwalb Entertainment. So you pretty much have to go into the Shadow of the Weird Wizard section in order to see what is available here, which isn't that big a deal, but it is a little misleading when you see all these things here and you're thinking, wow, this Schwalb Entertainment has a lot of games. Well, not really. So that's 2 games so far. Then we have Punkapocalyptic. Okay, Punkapocalyptic is probably the most divergent game of the ones released by Schwalb Entertainment. And the reason I say that is because the core mechanics in Shadow of the Demon Lord, Shadow of the Weird Wizard, and also the Demon Lord engine, which we'll get to in a moment, they all are similar enough where you would recognize the core mechanics at a glance. But if you open up the Punkapocalyptic role-playing game, it looks different. Instead of 4 attributes, you have 8 attributes. There's not really a magic system involved in Punkapocalyptic. It is a post-apocalyptic RPG, and it's built for that, based off of a miniatures game, which I've never played. And so Punkapocalyptic is the odd person out, or the odd game out here, when looking at all of the Schwalb Entertainment products. When the Wolf Comes is also a bit of an oddball. It uses the the Demon Lord engine for its core rules, but it is a science fiction Viking role-playing game. So it's Vikings in space using the Demon Lord rules. Um, so this is some more similar to Shadow of the Demon Lord and Shadow of the Weird Wizard than Punkapocalyptic, but it is still kind of an odd game out. And I would say that the third core rule set for the Schwalb Entertainment is most likely not most likely, it is the Demon Lord engine, which is the newest one to be released. Now, the Demon Lord engine is just the core rules. That's all it is. It does not have any path information in it. It doesn't have a magic system. It is simply the basic core rules for the Demon Lord engine, and it is meant to be a rule set that you can build other games off of. So I would say that there are 3 core games then, and then some offshoots in Schwalb Entertainment. The offshoots being Punkapocalyptic and When the Wolf Comes. But if you really want to even dig deeper, you could say that there are 3 core games, but one of the core games has 2 sub-games, or 2 games that have been built utilizing the Demon Lord engine. Those 2 games are Godless and Fate of the Forgotten. Now, I mentioned Godless only because of the new release for Godless. You could technically say that Godless is a standalone game as well, but it's not really, because when Godless was originally released, it was released as part of the Shadow of the Demon Lord Kickstarter way back in 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. And a source book was released for it, but you still needed the Shadow of the Demon Lord core rulebook in order to play Godless. So the new Godless that's been released kind of divorces the Godless game setting from the Shadow of the Demon Lord game, and it instead couples it with the Demon Lord engine. Now, what's the difference? Why does that matter? Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad I asked that. So the reason it matters is because even though Shadow of the Demon Lord, Shadow of the Weird Wizard, and the Demon Lord engine share some similarities, there are some core differences between those 3 different rule engines. Shadow of the Demon Lord was built to be a horror fantasy game. So it includes elements that are meant to be horrific. From everything from horrific spells to game mechanics that cause corruption and that cause insanity. And it is meant to be a dark game. Shadow of the Weird Wizard, it uses some of the same mechanics. So you got the same attributes, you got the same core mechanics of you roll a d20 for task resolution, and you roll d6s for everything else. So that's what Shadow of the Demon Lord is, and that's also what Shadow of the Weird Wizard is. So it shares the same mechanics, same 4 attributes, so there's a lot of similarities between the 2, but where Weird Wizard diverges from Shadow of the Demon Lord is that it is not meant to be a dark fantasy game. It's meant to be a high fantasy game. And so what constitutes a high fantasy game? What differentiates that from a horror game? Well, a horror game has to be a lower powered game in order for the characters to be horrified. So if you watch any horror movie, the protagonists are always the underdog. The horrific elements of a horror movie always has the upper hand on the protagonist, whether that be, their ability to remain hidden, their ability to, deal out damage, take damage, and keep going after the protagonists. And so the protagonist needs to have a sense of helplessness to some degree. Now, does Shadow the Demon Lord do that? Kind of. It interjects the possibility of horrific things happening to the characters. For example, there are spells such as the infamous explosive defecation. Is that what it's called? Explosive defecation? Wow, it's been a while. I believe that's what it's called. Anyway, hateful defecation. Sorry, hateful defecation. Hateful defecation is a spell that causes you to, literally shit yourself to death. And so that's pretty horrific if it works on a player character. So that's why I say, there are things that can inject horror, the feeling of horror, into players with Shadow the Demon Lord. The concept of getting corruption and having your character slowly accumulate corruption and seeing how that affects their body and their ability to interact with the setting. That also is a horrific thing. Insanity. Characters can lose their minds and go, fucking nuts. So, these are all things that can happen to characters, which means that these are things that can cause the feeling of horror. So Shadow the Demon Lord is a horror game, but it's not on par with games such as total horror games such as Call of Cthulhu. So Call of Cthulhu, you're playing an investigator, and when you are playing Call of Cthulhu, you are actively avoiding combat because your investigator will most likely die if they are in just a normal fight with just normal cultists, let alone the horrors from deep space. So a pure horror game like Call of Cthulhu is nothing but horror. Your characters are trying to avoid the bad things and resolve whatever the mystery is that they're trying to solve. But Shadow the Demon Lord is a fantasy horror game. So while the heroes are subjected to horrific things, they are still heroes. And they still have the ability to confront those horrific things and do combat with them. Now, will they always win? Not necessarily. There have been, in my campaigns, a number of character deaths. And so that is something that is, fairly common in a Shadow the Demon Lord campaign. But Shadow the Weird Wizard is a high fantasy game, meaning that there's not really a whole lot of horrific elements that are in the game. So the monsters in Shadow the Weird Wizard are threats. They are, they can be scary from a can we defeat this thing perspective, but they're not necessarily monsters and creatures that, try to interject horror. There's no insanity rules in Shadow the Weird Wizard. There's no corruption rules in Shadow the Weird Wizard. The game is designed to be more family friendly and to be, not so much scaring the characters and the players, rather posing challenges to them that they can overcome and become even more heroic. I've even called it it's a super heroic game because by the time they get to the master tier, they are very, very powerful. And so very little, I was going to say very little can hurt them, but I had 2 deaths in the campaign, in my final campaign, in the master tier of my Weird Wizard campaign, if I can form a fucking thought. So anyway, it can still be deadly, but it is less. The path to getting to the from the starting tier to the master tier is not fraught with the horrors that are found in Shadow of the Demon Lord. So um, that's the difference between those two games, is that one is meant to be dark and horrific, the other one is meant to be lighter toned and heroic. Now, where does the Demon Lord engine fit in all this? That's a good question. I really haven't answered that for myself yet, because I have yet to play the Demon Lord engine. We do have two things released for it so far. We've had the Godless and the Shadow of the Red Moon. Now, when I first read the first supplement for Shadow of the Red Moon, I was confused, because it read to me like it could very easily be just another aspect of Shadow of the Demon Lord. But the characters that you run in Shadow of the Red Moon are what differentiate it from Shadow of the Demon Lord. Now, as far as the feel of the game, it does have a Shadow of the Demon Lord feel to it. I mean, just even reading the first starting adventure, the characters are prisoners in a mine, and they have to escape. Now, of course, that's a fantasy trope. So this isn't like new territory or anything. But the chthonic horrors makes me think that this is what puts it more in the Shadow of the Demon Lord camp than the Shadow of the Weird Wizard camp. Now, where were we? Oh, yeah. Now, if we look at Godless, Godless is more of it's a post-apocalyptic game, but you even have subgenres within post-apocalyptic. So it's not a zombie apocalypse. It's not a AI apocalypse. It's not a vampire apocalypse. It's not a what other kind of apocalypses are there? It's not a name your favorite post-apocalyptic type, and it's not any of those, but it can be any of those. It is a setting that enables you to basically take it in whatever direction you want to take it, as far as I can tell. Now, this is the first adventure in a campaign. So this one may be setting up a specific flavor of post-apocalyptic. I don't know. I haven't run it. I haven't really read it. I kind of skimmed through the first couple of things that have been released for Godless. And I get the impression that it is for the most part, a low-tech post-apocalyptic setting. But still, it can go really in a lot of different directions. So I'll be interested to see how it goes. It could be horrific, or it could be more like Fallout, or it could be more like The Walking Dead, which is horror. I just mentioned that. I mean, it could go in any direction, really. So the interesting thing is that both Godless and the Shadow of the Red Moon are using the same core rules. Where it differs is where they differ from each other are how characters are built, equipment that's available. I believe there's going to be a magic system associated with Shadow of the Red Moon. But I don't think there will be one for Godless. I could be wrong. There might be, but I don't know. The original Godless used Shadow of the Demon Lord, so there was a magic system. There was magic in the world. Is there magic in this world? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I don't recall from my skimming of the material whether it sounded like there was going to be a magic aspect to it. but you know, it could be just a post-apocalyptic game that is free of any type of magics or psionics or, you know, super science or anything like that. I don't know. But the neat thing is that they both utilize the same core rules. So the core rules for the Demon Lord engine are similar to Shadow the Demon Lord and Shadow the Weird Wizard. They have characters have 4 attributes, and presumably they'll have paths and ancestries. But if you look at if you look at Shadow of the Red Moon, there's only one ancestry in Shadow of the Red Moon. In Godless, I believe most characters are human. So I believe there's only one ancestry there. I could be wrong. But, you know, Shadow the Demon Lord, of course, has a ton of ancestry. So does Shadow the Weird Wizard. So both of these games really narrow down the ancestry aspect of it. Now, how's it going to do paths? I don't know. We haven't seen paths yet. Both are starting adventures so far, and the starting adventures only allow you to run a character with an ancestry and no path associated. So I'm interested to see how paths are going to be handled in the Demon Lord engine. The Demon Lord engine rules don't have rules for paths. So what that means is that each game that comes out can handle paths completely differently from each other game, customizing those paths for the type of game that's being released. So also, the Demon Lord engine doesn't have things like equipment. It's got a very short, simple rules section, or simple weapons section. So you can use the Demon Lord engine, the Demon Lord engine rules for a basic game with simple weapons. Now I got the hiccups. Okay, better. But for example, like Godless, you could introduce some futuristic weapons in Godless. And in Shadow of the Red Moon, you could also introduce some really wacky weapons, because it was mentioned, I believe it was this one, it was mentioned that artifacts from the void tend to find their way to the Red Moon of Tartarus. So you could have some alien tech that finds its way into a Shadow of the Red Moon campaign. So these are totally different flavors of the Demon Lord engine, but they both use the same core rules. So those core rules were codified in the Demon Lord engine supplement, which is only 27 pages, I want to say, in length. So if you are someone who likes to tinker with game systems, or make your own games, or make your own game settings, and this is what I like about it, because I am one of those people. You could take the Demon Lord engine and you could create your own game from that. Now I am interested in using the Demon Lord engine for several other types of genres that I have been running in other game systems. So I have been running a game that I will call, you know, what if the X-Files were crossed over with ancient aliens, and you know, throw in a smattering of you know, cryptid lore and all that stuff. So you know, that game is a game that I've run using the Everyday Heroes system, which is a 5e, which is an offshoot of the 5e rules engine. But I haven't really liked using that, because it has some interesting aspects to it that make it somewhat difficult to run. And so I've been thinking, well, what if I use the Demon Lord engine for that campaign? And I think it can be done. So that's why I'm kind of interested to see what information is released with Godless, because what I would need is how would I do paths in a modern kind of sci-fi horror mashup, right? Um, Conspiracy theory type, setting. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on Godless to see, what is released for that, because I really don't want to have to do more work than I need to in order to create a Demon Lord engine game. I could steal and reskin things all day long. Um, but starting from scratch is a lot of work, and I have a full-time job, so it's not like I have all the free time in the world. But I would like to try my hand at that. Another game that I would like to run is a game based off of the Warhammer 40K universe. Now there are plenty of RPGs that have been released for Warhammer 40K, but I really don't like any of them. They are weird systems. Some of them were released by Fantasy Flight. The newer ones have been released by a different company. I forget off the top of my head. And I really don't dig any of those game systems. The latest one to come out was Wrath and Glory and, what is it, Imperium, something or other. And when I picked those up and read through them, I'm just not a fan of the game system. And not that they're bad systems necessarily. What I'm really trying to say is I don't want to have to learn new systems. I already know the Demon Lord system. I know it probably better than I know D&D, the current D&D. So what I'm trying to do is, since the Demon Lord engine seems to be more of a generic engine that you can use in any genre, I really want to try to create the games that I want to run using the Demon Lord engine, rather than using these other game systems that I have to learn the system, I have to teach the system to my players. The support for these systems on VTTs is not great. So, I'm trying to figure out a way of using the Demon Lord system to play the campaigns that I want to run. So 40K is another one. The Dresden Files. I've always wanted to run a Dresden Files type game. So that's a modern fantasy game where you have wizards and werewolves and vampires and magic and all that stuff, but it's in a modern setting. The real world is ignorant to the existence of the supernatural. Supernatural exists, and it's up to these supernatural heroes, such as wizards and paladins and that sort of thing, to keep the real world ignorant of the supernatural elements and keep the supernatural elements from bleeding into the real world too much. So that's the Shadow of the that is the Dresden Files. So I've always kind of wanted to do a Dresden Files-esque campaign, and I think the Demon Lord engine would be a great engine to do that with. I also have this other campaign that I've been working on for years, and it's a campaign setting that I came up with on my own. It is kind of a mashup of just about any fantasy setting that you can think of could be fit into this campaign world, because it's not, how should I describe it? I call it the Broken World campaign, and basically the concept is that there was a world and there was a horrific cataclysm that literally broke the world into chunks, into pieces. And those pieces are now floating islands in the ether. They still have cities and civilizations on them, but now they're floating in a void separate from each other rather than being on a the surface of a cohesive world. Um, so you have, one island, quote unquote island, could be the size of a continent, and it could be a traditional high fantasy setting. You could have another uh, place in this setting where it's ruled by dragons, or you could have another place that is kind of like the Dark Sun setting, which is a desert setting with no magic, but it has more of a psionics flavor to it. You could have you could have when the world broke apart, the oceans had to go somewhere, so they just kind of formed a mass of water in the ether, and so you could have a complete ocean environment, but it is like a spherical ocean, so you could sail around it, you could dive into it, so you could have an ocean type setting. So there's all kinds of things that I envision this campaign setting to be useful for various types of fantasy games, but my problem has been finding the right game system to utilize. And I started off with a variation of Dungeons and Dragons that I tried to come up with on my own. It really didn't work out as well as I would have liked it to. I've thought about using Dungeon Crawl Classics. I've thought about using older versions of D&D. What else have I thought about using with it? I thought about using Shadow of the Demon Lord with it, but none of them seem to fit quite right with what my concept was. And so, but now we have the Demon Lord engine, which is again a generic system, which I think I can take that and I can steal elements from Weird Wizard and Demon Lord and create exactly the game system that I want for this homebrew setting that I haven't going on in my brain here for years, that I need to get out and actually play before I die of old age. So I'm thinking the Demon Lord engine is going to be it, but that's also going to take a lot of work because, again, I got to steal from these other games and create paths and create equipment and create spells or reskin these things, and then my other limitation is virtual tabletop support, which is why I'm hoping that somebody takes the Demon Lord engine and makes a very basic module for all of the, all of the the big virtual tabletops, Roll20, Foundry, Fantasy, what is it called? Not Fantasy Flight, Fantasy Realms? No, Fantasy Grounds. Fantasy Grounds, and just all we need is a very basic, customizable module in each of these virtual tabletops that enables us to go in and build a compendium. Now, you can't build a compendium in Roll20, and I don't know if you can build one in Fantasy Grounds. I've never used Fantasy Grounds, but you can in Foundry. So, I could build my own paths. I could build my own things, but I still need that core rules engine to be built. So if somebody out there has the skill to build modules for Foundry, then this is my plea, man. Get out there and make a very basic Demon Lord engine rule set for Foundry, and and do it for Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds too if you want. But I use Foundry for my my virtual games. So if you were able to do that, if somebody does that, then I would be able to run and build my campaign much easier. As it stands right now, this game that I'm wanting to run, or these games that I'm wanting to run, if I want to use the Demon Lord engine, they would have to be pen and paper, because there's no Demon Lord engine rule set. Now, could I use the Shadow of the Demon Lord rule set? or the Shadow of the Weird Wizard rule set in Foundry? Kind of, but you know, for example, the Demon Lord engine uses the um, the initiative system from Shadow of the Weird Wizard instead of the fast and slow turn initiative system that Shadow of the Demon Lord uses. So, you know, that says to me that I should use the Shadow of the um, Weird Wizard. But the Demon Lord engine has additional rules that Weird Wizard and Demon Lord do not have. Shadow of the Demon Lord do not have, such as the courage slash horror attributes, right? So in the Demon Lord engine, you have health and damage, just like you do in Weird Wizard and Shadow of the Demon Lord, but it also includes a courage and horror attribute. So it's still the idea there being that you have your physical damage and health, but you also have your mental and spiritual damage and health. So the Demon Lord engine includes that, but those other two game engines don't. So if I were going to run a Demon Lord engine game using the Shadow of the Demon Lord Foundry rule set or the Shadow of the Weird Wizard Foundry rule set, the characters would be missing those attributes and they would have to track them on pen and paper anyway, which is not optimal. And so we need a Demon Lord engine module for Foundry. So I'm begging you, people that have the skills, build it, and I will pay for it. I will pay big bucks for it because I've already bought all the special content for Shadow of the Demon Lord in Foundry. I've already, I bought what I can for Shadow of the Weird Wizard, but there's not been any premium content released for Shadow of the Weird Wizard yet. But I'm sure as soon as that comes out, I'll be picking that up. So you got my money. I'm begging you. I got my wallet open, ready to throw cash at you. So build it and I will come and pay for it. So there you go. All right. So where am I going with all this? Those of you that are coming new into the Schwalb Entertainment games are probably looking at all this, going to the, why do I have this open? Going to the Schwalb Entertainment website and thinking, oh, God, that's a lot. Where do I start? Well, the first thing is you wanna figure out what type of game you want to run. If you want to run a dark fantasy game, you go with Shadow of the Demon Lord. That is grim, dark, dirty, and if you like that in your fantasy, Shadow of the Demon Lord is your game. If you want a Forgotten Realms type campaign, your classic D&D 5th edition type game, Shadow of the Weird Wizard is your best bet. If you're wanting any other genre, then the Demon Lord engine is probably where you will land once there are games that have been completed for that rules engine. Right now, you've got a couple of games that are starting, but you don't have a complete game as of yet. So Shadow of the Red Moon or Shadow of the Demon or Godless are still at the beginning stages of that. Now, if you want to run a post-apocalyptic game, you could always run Punkapocalyptic. And if you want to run a science fiction game, you can always look at When the Wolf Comes. But again, those two games are kind of aberrations. They're a bit of an offshoot of the Demon Lord, what I'm calling the Core 3 Demon Lord games. And so those have kind of a specific flavor. The Punkapocalyptic and When the Wolf Comes have a specific flavor that you would want to play to really want those games. So you'd have to do your homework. You'd have to buy the Punkapocalyptic RPG, read through it. There are adventures for it, so you can run some adventures in that setting. But it's going to be a pretty specific rule set for those adventures. Same with When the Wolf Comes. So that's my recommendation. Dark fantasy, Shadow of the Demon Lord. High fantasy, Shadow of the Weird Wizard. Um, Other genres, Demon Lord Engine. All right, so that's my recommendation. I just wanted to chat about that, get this out of my head so I don't have to think about it anymore. Um, One of these days, I'm going to actually sit down and try to map out my Broken World campaign, or my Dresden Files campaign, or my 40K campaign using the Demon Lord engine. I might make some videos about that, but who knows? That down the road. All right, so I'm wrapping this up. Thanks for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe, like all other content makers say. And the reason they say that is because that gives you views. Views are what YouTube uses to determine if a video is worthy, and spread the love throughout the YouTube verse. And so if you don't do that, then my videos remain pretty hidden and isolated from the greater community. I want more people to play Schwalb games because I think these are fantastic games, and so I want to spread the word and get these to be more popular. That's why I'm doing these videos, and I need your help. So like and subscribe, spread the word, go to conventions, run Schwalb Entertainment games, get these games out visible, and make people aware of them, and spread the love. All right, I'm out of here. If I can figure out how to stop this damn recording. There it is.